Hi guys, Queen of Flannel here. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another episode of How I Color Mini Edition. This is a series where I do a quick tip, either using a specific supply or coloring a specific object, and I kind of walk you guys through it. They're designed to be short, 10 to 15 minute videos. So today we are going to work in Hanna Karlzon's colorless coloring book. This was her children's coloring book that came out a few months ago. It was announced, I think, right around the time that she told the community about her health issues. But I picked up a copy of this for myself and another one for my niece, and the illustrations in it very, very Hanna. The paper is a little thinner than what's in her hardback books, but it's still an adorable little coloring book. And since we are entering into the summer here in New York, I thought for today's video we would color one of these cute little popsicles, and we're going to use the Neocolor IIs, and I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks for the Neocolor IIs, and we're going to use a Tombow colorless blender. So those of you that have been around my channel long enough know that I love these blenders, and I use them for just about any water-based medium that other than the markers that they go with. I've used these with my watercolor pencils, I've used them with Inktense, and I've been messing around with using them with the Neocolor IIs. And the nice thing about using the Tombow blender is that it makes them more usable in books that maybe the paper isn't quite the best quality, that if you used these with a brush and water, it wouldn't hold up. So it gives you some additional options. And yeah, so let's go ahead and we'll start, and I'll walk you guys through what I am doing and some things to take note of when you are using the Neocolor IIs and the Tombow blender. So I did this ice cream cone this morning because I wanted to test out the paper, which I highly recommend with especially with any water-based medium, seeing how the paper handles. I have used this in one of my mythographic books that I'm working on, an image, and it handles very well, no crinkling. This paper, I was a little worried about how it was going to handle. It didn't seem to want to take it, but it worked out. It actually, the crinkling kind of straightened itself out. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're gonna color the top section of this pink. Now I kind of want a highlight right here in this area, so I'm gonna put more pigment around the edges of popsicle. I'm gonna make that fairly dark around the edges. And since I kind of have an idea of how this paper handles, and this is the color Rose, I will put all of my combos in the description as well. Alright, so I was using this over here, I want to make sure that my blender pen is cleaned off, so you just scribble it on a scrap piece of paper and make sure that it's clean. And so I'm going to start along the edges and start activating my pigment. And one of the things that you can do is, if you find that you have a lot of excess pigment on your blender pen, is I'm going to put some of this up here. And I want to be careful because like I said, I want this to be a highlight here. So I don't want to pull too much of the pigment into where I want my highlight. I'm just kind of going around the edge here. And I do want it to have a bit of the pink tinge to it. I just don't want it to be... I got something on my pen. And you can kind of see there's a few spots in here where I haven't activated all of my pigment. And on this paper, since it is a little bit thinner, you want to be really light-handed and don't scrub at your paper. You can kind of pounce it around, and I'm going to clean some of the pigment off and just use my blender pen, just kind of like pounce it around here just to blend out a little bit of that edge. And we can go back in and layer more of this color over top, but we want to give it a minute to dry first before we add anything else in here, because otherwise we will pill the paper. So while we give that a minute, we're going to move on to this middle section. And I want to do the same thing. I want to keep a bit of the highlight here. So I'm going to keep it along the same side. And this color is Flesh. This is going to end up being kind of like one of those Neapolitan style popsicles. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to start in the darker area around the edge and pull this pigment out towards where I want my highlight. And we can go back in and add some shading after it's dry. And then for this bottom section, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this cinnamon color for the bottom section. And I'm going to do the exact same thing that I have done with the other sections. And we're going to start down here at the edges. And since this color is a bit darker, it would be easier to see a lot of these, like the harsh edge lines on this. I just kind of want to pounce that color around, being careful not to oversaturate my paper. And we'll see how that looks. So let's go ahead and we'll just work our way down. We'll go ahead and do the base layer for the popsicle stick right here, and I'm going to use ochre for this one. I'm not too worried about highlight on this stick. I'm going to come back in and do some shading when it dries. Alright, so let's see what I have that I can use for... trying to see what I have for colors here that would work for shading on our top portion here. So that's purple. So I have the 40 set of these. And then some open stock. Alright. I am going to... Let me make sure this isn't going to be too bright. It is. Okay, so I'm going to use the outside of the tin for this, but this is another trick. So one of the things that that you can do with the Neocolor IIs when you're using a water brush is actually taking your brush and pulling pigment off of the crayon to get more concentrated color in specific areas. And that technique doesn't really work super well with the Tombow blender, but what you can do is use a palette or the inside of the tin and scribble your crayon on top of the tin or your palette, and then pick the pigment up with your blender pen, and that will allow me to get some darker color in here. And that's a little too red for me, so I'm going to add some of the pink, the rose color to my palette. And we're going to pick a little bit of the pink up, just so we don't completely lose our pink color. And then I'm going to do the same thing around the edge. So when you're using this technique, depending on how close your shade color is to your base color, you can kind of get away with not letting it dry in between. Easier to blend that way. Add a little bit of the crimson here to give it a little bit of interest. That adds some texture to it, I think. I'm pretty happy with that. And if I wanted to, let's just for funsies. So this is this is brown. And I'm just going to pick up just a little bit of the brown. It might not show up. Sometimes it's... So, if I wanted to add in an even darker color in here, it probably would be a better idea to let that dry in between. All right, so now let's move down to the center here, and I'm gonna take some of the ochre and add it to my edges. And another thing that you can do if you find that you're pulling too much of a darker color into an area that you want lighter is just kind of feather your color back from your edge into your darker area instead of from your darker area out. And I'm going to add just a little bit more of the flesh color in here. Just because my highlight is a little bit bigger than I wanted. Add a little bit more of that in here. Just kind of feather in towards this highlight area. And let's do... This is the brown again. Actually, I should go with... Alright, so... The brown isn't quite giving me the value that I need, so let's see if I can find it over here in my pile. Alright, let's try... This is Toledo Brown. So we're going to try this and see if we can get a good shade color. It's a little bit better. And I'm going to use some of the Toledo Brown. And down here. There. I am happy with how that turned out, and I can always go back in after it dries if I feel like it needs anything. But there we go. That is your quick tutorial coloring a popsicle with the Neocolor IIs. Like I said, I will go in and I will put my my colors, my combos that I use down in the description box for you as well. And that's going to be it for me today. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified when I post additional content. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.